controversial. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, or if it's your first time here, then nice to meet you. My name is Saskia Klunder and I'm a pole dancer, stripper on hiatus, and I make videos that are pole related. So today I'm going to be filming a review of the new movie that was released on Netflix, the documentary called Strip Down, Rise Up. So if you're interested in seeing my brutally honest review of this film, then keep watching. I don't even know where to start with this. I went into watching this movie thinking it might not be great. I already had a feeling that they weren't going to be mentioning sex workers, strippers at all, or very little, and so I went into it with that mentality. I didn't go into it thinking that it was going to be a documentary, all-encompassing pole dance documentary. I did go into it thinking maybe this is about a specific type of pole, specific studio, specific group of people. And like any sport or art form, dance style, there's going to be tons of different people in the community who all feel differently about it. No one will ever all agree. So let's just start off by saying that. I'm going to divide this review into two parts because I feel like the documentary was divided into two parts. The part about Sheila and S Factor, and then a different part for the parts about Amy and Janine and pole competing in pole and whatnot. I'm also going to be giving you my opinion from the point of view of someone who is part of the pole dance and pole fitness community, but also part of stripping, the sex work community. I went into it hoping they would talk about strippers and sex workers, and they didn't. I did feel like the movie was really focused on S Factor. So that was the majority of the movie, and I feel like that was really confusing for the average person who doesn't know what pole dancing is, how we do it, how studios are run. S Factor is very specific. I only just recently kind of started learning about S Factor. I knew what it was before, but from this film I've learned more about it. So S Factor seems to be a specific studio, a specific brand that is a lot more about sensual movement and movement therapy. They do use poles and they learn some pole tricks, some pole techniques, but it is largely about connecting with the other women, specifically women who are part of your group or your class. And it seems to be a lot more about releasing and finding something within yourself, not so much about learning a specific dance style. Sheila even says in the documentary she's not teaching people how to dance like her, she's teaching people how to dance like themselves. And I do think there is something really valuable in what Sheila is offering. I think it's confusing to put it in make a documentary and market it as a pole dance documentary when really it was mostly about S Factor. But that being said, S Factor on its own, I have a lot of opinions about. I do think that movement can be a great way to work through trauma. I don't think that pole teachers or fitness professionals should be guiding people through their mental health recovery. I think that people should seek out professionals for that. If you are a therapist, if you are a dance therapist, then cool, go for it. But if you're not a therapist, why are you trying to offer therapy to these people? I watched this documentary with my fiance, and he said that he felt like Sheila was breaking these women down to be able to build them back up. And it was interesting to hear his perspective on that because I went to theater school. I had a teacher who did this to all of us, broke us down to build us back up. And that is a form of mental abuse. This teacher has now been fired because of that. This is like a clear problem that I think teachers have, that they think that they think their scope of what they're able to instruct is a lot larger than it is. Sometimes someone will come forward in a pole class with something really traumatic to share with you as an instructor. That doesn't mean that you are now qualified to deal with that issue. You should always be referring your students to licensed professionals to get the care they need. Other things about S Factor, I have a list here. In the documentary, there's a part where she's like, take your glasses off, take your hair down. And I just felt like immediately offended. Like, I always have my hair down when well, not always, but like, and I don't wear glasses, but I was like, I would never tell my students to take their hair down and take their glasses off. If that's how they feel comfortable, that's how they feel comfortable. You should never force someone to do anything like that. You should definitely never force someone to take their glasses off and not be able to see, as if wearing glasses makes you less feminine, less open. That was what was implied, in my opinion. That's what I understood from this documentary, was that this instructor of S Factor, Sheila, wants people to come in and find their femininity and their curves. And if you are a masculine woman, she wasn't celebrating that, and she wanted you to find your femininity. But some people are more masculine. They move in a more masculine way, they dance in a more masculine way, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can still totally access your inner slut and be masculine. So I just felt like it was really uncomfortable to watch. She spent a lot of time talking with these women about traumas, sexual abuse traumas for the most part, that they had experienced, and working through these traumas. Then at the end of this course, she brought in men so that they could dance in front of male energy, have male energy around them, make these women open up and relive their most intense traumas in this room, and then bring in men so that they can do it very vulnerable in front of these men. She's not a licensed professional. She doesn't know what making these women relive their trauma is going to do. Just because there was a little snippet in the movie where they're talking about how you always need to go check up on your students and make sure that when they're leaving class that they are seeing a professional, that's not enough. Are all of your classes that extreme and intense? S Factor as a whole is a really cool idea if there was a licensed professional running these sessions. And I think that saying S Factor is a pole class is really, really confusing. And there was even someone who attended the pole class in the movie, Megan, who was like, I just wanted to take a pole class. And she decided not to go back after because she just wanted to take a pole class. And I think that it's really confusing for someone who doesn't know the difference between S Factor and pole to watch this documentary, and it was never really explained. I think it was great that a lot of those women did seem to work through traumas, and I won't take that away from them. I think that's amazing, and the people who were positively affected by S Factor, that's great. But I know that not all of those women left those sessions feeling great, and I know they didn't all recover from these traumas immediately and miraculously from taking a pole class. So I think that it's really important that instructors don't start thinking that that's what we're supposed to be trying to do. We're not qualified to do that.
I realize I forgot to mention that the technique they showed in the S Factor clip of how to climb is just wrong. That's not how you climb. The technique was wrong. So that was weird, and I forgot to mention that earlier when I was filming, so yeah, I wanted to throw that in.
As for the portion about Janine Butterfly, I thought that was cool. I really liked learning more about Janine Butterfly, and I was already a fan, and I think she's a beautiful dancer, and it was cool to learn more about her story. And same as the portion about Amy Sunshine, Amy Bond. I liked the portion. I didn't know any of her past, so it was interesting to learn about her as well. And I thought it was really interesting learning about those two other people. I don't really have much else to say about that. I thought it was interesting, it was cool. And my issue with them choosing those three people specifically to focus this documentary on is the fact that none of them are BIPOC dancers. Why didn't we have one woman of color showcased in that documentary? It's hard to talk about the gentrification of pole dance because I know I'm part of the problem. I only started pole 7 years ago, and really it had already been starting to become mainstream for 15 years at that point. I just got into it right when it really started to get popular, and it's really sad to see that it is being whitewashed. And the women who are behind this beautiful dance form are being erased. We're not giving space to BIPOC creators to tell the story, to tell the history of pole. Rather, we're giving a voice to more white women to tell their story about how pole changed their lives and made them feel empowered. I don't really care about seeing any more documentaries about that. I want to see a documentary about the real history of pole dancing. I don't know who's gonna make it, but I sure as hell know it's gonna be a BIPOC dancer. I don't want this to be a really long, angry sounding review, but I just feel like there are a lot of elements that were not covered in that documentary. The history of pole dance, how stripping went from being taboo to being mainstream. I want to see a pole dance documentary that is directed and produced by BIPOC dancers. And until then, I don't think we're going to get to see the truth and the reality of what pole dance is and where it came from. I hope that by making this review, I've managed to at least make a couple people think about pole and its history and how we need to be representing it and how we're not representing it properly. We need to be standing up for sex workers, and we need to be telling the true history of where pole comes from, and that's strip clubs. And if you're ashamed to be compared to a stripper, then get off the pole. Always wearing pajama pants, always wearing pajama pants.